G'day kids, how are you? Welcome to Australia. Nice to see you all here with us live, although there's nobody here viewing with us. We don't hold that against you at this stage because some of you, maybe just one person who's bored watching these videos over and over again, is enjoying these videos. And for generations to come, they'll be ignored and left unwatched. I'd be surprised if we get to 3 views on some of them. That's not why we're doing it. It's not about being popular. Like me. No. It's about a message. It's about doing stuff. You know, the guy who invented penicillin, you know, he spent the whole life in the gym and his wife's always saying to him, you just stop fucking around in that gym and come in here and eat your supper, you know. Yeah, but love, you know. Fleming. I'm busy. I'm doing stuff in here. Yeah. Just come in here and eat your dinner, would ya? No, don't take my work seriously, do you, love? Tell ya. You think it was some guy there under a microscope just slogging away day after. No, he's doing it to get away from his wife. And he's, yeah. This mold on this food, it's how it works, isn't it? You know. So this is the same. Look, I understand it's a sign of insanity. Me talking to a camera. You're not here. Nobody's here. There's me and a camera in a big wooden echoey room with a very opaque background behind me. But look, I understand. And what this is good, clean fun. Okay? Nobody gets hurt. Nobody. Because it's respectful. I swear, because you know, it's a form of expression. It's the way I was brought up like, innit? And most people do, innit? Hey. So, we do have a couple of viewers, you know. And funny enough, on Facebook, we've been knocking around for fucking 10 years or so on Facebook, wherever it opened. We've got quite a few fans over there. We've done all right over the years. Done all right, mate. But this is relatively new. It's just been lazy, you see. I've just had no ambition. But recently I changed the chip, updated the programming, and I'm good to go. And that's the beauty of going away, because if you don't go away, you can't come back, which is the most important part of it. If I come across as a little cocky, you know, you don't want to see someone that's like, hello, today we're going to talk about, you know, this and that, maybe some of the other. And if you don't fall asleep or switch off, you want to hear the engaging. This is what I do, okay? This is a very polished act for me. I'm usually a very quiet man, but I'm passionate, I tell you, about this subject matter. Some of our friends over at Facebook, it could have been somebody I know quite well because it came up with a funny odd name, you know, but you know. It says here, how does being fit affect your sex life? Well, now there's a question and a half, isn't there? It's actually quite an interesting question because you get beyond the old normal part of what's happening. As a trainer, well before I was a trainer, I've always been a watcher. I've always been fascinated by body language. And, you know, you look at certain people and from years and years and years of watching expressions and how people move. And yeah, it's fascinating for me. I could sit and do that for days and not move or not say a word. Over the years, we were street traders when we were kids, you know, literally we was on the street markets. And basically, you learn a lot from watching people, and especially watching people in cold weather. Oh, nobody wants to make any movements they don't have to in cold weather. So as you start watching these people, you start picking up on little cues that everybody has. There's movements that the market traders make and movements that the punters make, you know. So you start to understand, and like a chameleon, you change your colors and you're able to deal and fall between the gaps and anticipate things that happen. So as a trainer, I've always been fascinated in how people move. Because most of the communication we have is non-verbal, right? We understand that. Everybody's heard that these days. Itchy nose. I'm not telling lies. Itchy nose basically means we say more with what our body says than what with our mouths say. Which, to be honest with you, with experience, It's just a litany of lies that come out of people's mouths. Consistent stream of flow of lies, lies, lies. People feel compelled to make this talking of lies about things they have no idea about, than to shut the devil up. I'll be clean. Because it's the time of day. Well, it's always daytime somewhere. And, you know, fundamentally, their bodies are saying one thing and their faces and their mouths are saying another. And if you're really good at this, you can look at people's eyes. If you look at people's eyes, I spoke good England, you can tell everything about one person. I've often said, you put me in a room with someone for 3 or 4 minutes, without having to say a word, I can tell you all about them. Fantastic. I always get told I have this really, really intense stare. And I can understand that. I've got a really weird colored eyes, very light sensitive. When the sun comes out, it makes me sneeze like hell, but I understand. I watch. I'm very, 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 I'm a very good watcher. I have very sharp eyes, and very little gets past me. I'd like to think I might be the biggest fool in the world, right? But the key here is to watch is to learn. And then when you realize and you watch, all the secrets come out. Just watching. There's no secrets. Just watch over and over again. Something fascinates you, watch it. Learn from watching. And when you go to do it, instinctively, you'll have a better understanding of how it all works, the mechanics, the engineering, the theory, the logic. And the same thing happens when I look at people who are unfit. So in a roundabout way, I'm going to answer that question now. Yeah? By watching people, by listening to people, you understand what their philosophy is towards one of the most fundamental aspects of the continuance of the human race. Now, of course, lots of cultures don't appreciate sex for pleasure. That's their thing. I got nothing against that. This is my thing. Sex life is part of the big draw of why we all go and get universities and jobs and money to attract a mate. And these days, the priority isn't as it used to be, or like in the Quakers, to have as many kids as you can, or the Jewish population who populate quite heavily and only really stick to those rules. But we tend to have sex for recreation. It's good fun. It has its risks. Sometimes it backfires. Sometimes you end up doing something you wish you hadn't done with somebody you didn't really like. But once you get down to the nitty gritty of it, let's assume we're talking about, well, one-night stands aren't really the best part of sex, or haven't been for me. They're great, but they have a limited shelf life insofar as what you can do. If you're very animalistic, I know the gay scene is very much like that. They just go at it. You know, it's very different to heterosexual sex, so that's their thing also. But in a relationship, let's narrow down some parameters here. How does being fit and in a relationship affect your sex? Now, obviously, I can only really talk firsthand from my internal processes as a man. Okay, I can talk from observational perspectives of how being fit affects a woman. Yeah, I can do that because I have a certain amount of experience with that, but I couldn't talk for a woman or express how they would be able to do it. So I can give you some general outlines. So it's not just biased towards talking about men, okay? So we're going to talk about men and women and being fit. So like any exercise, physical exercise that involves some kind of level of exertion, of course, everybody likes everything. And there are people who like slow sex, fast sex, 2-minute sex, 10-minute sex, 5-hour sex, tantric sex, S&M, whatever floats your boat. But they all have certain requirements in the performance department of being able to sustain that level of intensity or enjoyment that the other person is enjoying, yeah, or reciprocating. So if you're just one of these people who has absolutely smokes and drinks and is out of shape, bit of a beer belly or a huge beer belly, can't really do any cardiovascular exercise of some significant intensity for a prolonged period of time, by watching you and just knowing those parameters and understanding myself, having had sex several times, that basically you have to be able to hold that for a while. So one of the main advantages of being in good shape, as opposed, not saying that people who are fat don't have good sex, because that could be all they need, right? Better sex is down to the individual, because if you can understand or how one works, you can extrapolate that forwards and make a choice on that, right? So better sex, if you're fitter, means, well, you can go harder, longer, and stronger, and you'll be able to deliver a different type of experience. Of course, it takes two to tango, yes? We always talk about the opposite partner being very inanimate sometimes, when it's like the Swiss clock or the log, one movement, very precise. It's the Swiss clock. The log is lying there doing nothing, with nothing really happening. Or the starfish. These are things, don't involve much fitness at all, really. Basically, just no audience participation. So you can imagine, if we're comparing here what the experience is like, it's not going to be anything really like, wow, Disneyland here. It's just going to be, walk down to the corner shop, isn't it? Over and done with. I remember somebody telling me that her sex life was perfunctory. I don't think I've ever felt sorrier for somebody, because they were explaining how they was in, out, finished, 2 minutes done, off you go, love, I'm off to watch the football. Sad, sad, sad. No thought about it. It was almost like it was a release. It could have been anybody there, she said. So basically, understanding what makes a good lover, I think it's about understanding what the other person's physiological needs are. How do you do that? It doesn't involve much exercise. It's about talking to the other person, learning about them, understanding what your cumulative understanding or knowledge, of past relationships could be. Yeah, how you've accumulated some experience, not only through the quantity of partners you've had, but the length of time you spent with each of those partners. So you might have been on many, many hundreds of thousands of dates, and done many different things with different people, and picked and cherry-picked the things that you like, and developed your tastes, same way you'd go to different restaurants and do the same thing there. You might like certain foods and the way they prepare this, different hotels do different things different ways. So you develop your taste and you refine them. And it's very much the same when you have somebody who's incredibly fit and somebody who's not so fit, somebody who understands what the physiological needs are and how to control their body, because they have spent so much time working with it, and also being able to express themselves physically with their non-oral communication. And one of the beautiful things I think about, for example, tantric sex, is that you can enjoy it for longer by becoming a cellular being and breaking it down away from the conscious, because a lot of what tantric sex is about, a couple of the things that are very prevalent in tantric sex, which is about yogic sex with all kinds of different positions, for those of you who don't know, and different tempos and feelings and connectivity, more than just in and out, how's your father. It's basically a much more ritualistic kind of thing. Now, two things about Tantra are that you're not supposed to do it with somebody you love. You're meant to do it with a tantric partner, okay? And the second thing is that you're not allowed to use any kind of technique, which means that you have to undo everything or unlearn everything you've learned about sex and go with the impulse and allow your body to go with it. And what an extraordinary aspect of that is that that's very, very rewarding and fulfilling when you do that, and you can disengage from the conscious being in the mind and being able to explore those things. But basically, what it means also, 2 seconds, the same problem over again. Here we go. Ready? I'm so sorry about this. I do video not working at all. I will fix this. God damn it. There we go. And we're back. Yes. Okay. Nicely done, boss. Let's see. Okay. Yes, now we're back. There we go. Okay, so we always love those little bits in the middle where it breaks down. I'm going to get through this. So part of tantric sex is being able to switch off your conscious being and forget about the technique that you're using and go with the moment that you're going. Now, obviously, in order to be able to do that, to take away from the ejaculation of the male to encourage the female orgasm, basically you have to be able to hold yourself, and you have to be able to control your body enough not to just get in there for 3 minutes and be over and done with, because the refractory period in between male orgasms gets longer the more you ejaculate. But it is possible, with the great physiological amount of practice and understanding of how the body works, to separate male orgasm from ejaculation. Okay, now we're talking in adult terms. Okay, so if the kids are in the room, best send them out, because this is probably something I need to hear right now. Fundamentally, then, what that means is that the female orgasm can continue and escalate, and the benefit of being able to control your body by understanding it and having the stamina, the cardiovascular fitness, and just the tonality to be able to sustain a sex session, which can go on for hours and hours and hours without breaking, basically is a harmonious union. The pinnacle of that comes from a lot of understanding the body. So obviously there's a lot of chemistry that's happening inside, enough carbohydrates readily available, and fundamentally that then translates into how you can reach this level of euphoric sex prolonged for such a long period. It doesn't seem like a long period, it just tends to end up being a long period, and it can go for hours on end. But it doesn't seem like that at the time, because you're lost in some kind of flow state while you're doing it, if you're doing it right. So obviously, if you're some big fat knacker with a belly, you're not going to be able to do that. And that's one of the shames that I find will affect most people, because they can't enjoy the benefits of this elevated state of being. It's something so fundamentally essential to all of us. So you ask me, there's all good going on about it, Pat. Stop rubbing salt into the wounds. But how do we get to that level? Well, it's very simple, right? We have a start point and we have an end point. And in between, there's some points too. I start by going from point 1 to point 2 to point 3. And then I start to see that if this is something that matters to me, something I'd like to enjoy in my life, and something so much as I learn about myself during my lifetime, then this is something I should be able to master. The same way people master push-ups, the splits, a marathon, anything, dance moves, it all comes down to your willingness to learn and to completely apply these things and surrender yourself to what it demands from you in a physiological way, which connects up then with your emotional and psychological train of thought to give you this wonderful experience. So it's harder for people who don't have the physiological markers in place, which come from doing things over and over again, to be able to sustain those little pieces of their life, okay, or to attain those heights, okay. So when we look at then the quality of what's happening with orgasm, especially in females, it's all related to something called pelvic floor and the muscles surrounding all the core muscles, which play a fundamental part in not only supporting the body and all the digestive processes, in stabilization, also in childbirth. All these muscles become so important, okay, that you can't neglect them at all. You have to focus on them from a very young age. And I think there should be something that women from 21, or I would say, 21 on, have to really take control over in anticipation of having children. So once they do have children, they don't lose that control, because it can be quite hellish for some women, having done postnatal, to regain that because it was damaged so far, because they didn't have anything there in preparation of an understanding before they were damaged, so there was no preemptive strike almost, so basically being fit and understanding how your core works on the internal muscles is something that you can do sitting at your desk. It's something that doesn't take a lot of exertion. It just means you have the willingness to do it over and over and to commit to those things until it becomes second nature. And that takes thousands and thousands of contractions, which is something you sit there and you tweak, you suck your belly button in, you practice your breathing, you might encourage the movement through pelvic floor, the gripping through the walls of the vagina, I guess. And basically the same thing for men. If you're a big truck driver whose big belly just sits over, no disrespect to you, mate, but the fact that you're not going to be able to hold an erection for very long doesn't take much. It's not really rocket science to figure that one out. So if you're a good lover and you want to be able to be somebody who surrenders themselves, there's nothing quite as satisfying as being able to surrender yourself to one partner completely and to satisfy them in a way that is uncommon, that they'd have to search high and low in the deepest valleys and the highest mountains for someone who's willing to surrender themselves completely to provide that kind of sexual interaction that's so meaningful and goes beyond just, hey, you know, down the pub with the lads later talking about it. Of course, you know, it has to evolve. And right parallel to that is how your physicality affects. You know, when you're young and you're a kid and you're out there doing it, basically you're not focusing on, well, I'm going to be into this whole kind of tantric sex. It doesn't occur to you. Just like, yeah, all right, good, over and done with, next. And the same thing with girls, I suppose, you know, that there's this element of that to it in our modern society. So it's uncommon when you come across somebody who actually has the ability to share themselves. And one of the main strings of that is that they have put a lot of time into how they manage their body, how they control their body, how they can use their nervous system. It's so intricate in its application that you're able to take sensations away from the erogenous zones and disperse them out through the nervous system into the rest of the body. Fundamentally, partially also, it's how you use your touch, your sensibilities, and the ability that you have to express yourself by caress and by touching your partner when you're not even thinking about penetration and stuff like that. Basically, what you have to be aware of, acutely aware of, and tuned into the same vibration is just what happens when you're using the sense of soft touch on your body's nervous system and their skin. Being able to identify and follow around the body because you understand how it feels for yourself gives you an extra dimension to what your sex life is. So not only do you have the means to sustain it, you're actually you're turning off the front brain, you're using your back brain, you're getting into these things, you're able to communicate on a cellular level, and then you're able to express and share one of the most sacred things that you could ever possibly ask for, which is as rare as whatever you want to say is rare. Okay, I can't think of a good analogy. So if you find a person who's like that, you know, I'd overlook a lot of things that they do in their other parts of their life if you are able to enjoy that, because not many people will find somebody of that level of commitment, of discipline, who are humbled by the right partner, who are completely devoted to providing to their goddess. It's an amazing thing. It's a joyous thing. And just two people in a cosmos where there's no room for anybody else. There's such a vast universe of experience. And in order to achieve that, it doesn't come off the supermarket shelf and you can't find it on every street corner. You can have an inkling of it. You can do the groundwork for it. So being sexually active, by having a good body and good discipline in place, knowing what to eat, treating your body right, the self-respect, it all comes as a package, because you don't get this kind of thing, or you probably don't notice this kind of thing when you're just bumming around seeing what's out there. You know, you have to make a commitment. One of the joys of being in that kind of relationship is it really does provide a great shock absorber for a lot of the things that most people wouldn't be able to overcome. You know, to have that unity, that bond, it's non-oral, that there's no arguing, there's just this place where they go to, and as complete individuals, they're accepted of that. And that comes a lot from your physiological state. Make no mistake about that. So what you're trading in by being unfit, and when you're lighting up that cigarette, you're moving one step away from ever being able to discover that, or maybe just fleeting glimpses of it, which is even more frustrating than being able to. Now we're talking about it. Of course, your awareness of this will come through, because I'm a normal guy. I'm not some wizard who has a magic penis, you know. As much as I might want to think that, you know, at the end of the day, I have to think about why this is possible for me. And of course, it comes from me, and it comes from the right person. and it's rare, and it's beautiful. And once you see it, it sets you free because you had those connections in your life. It's like a mystical illusion in certain respects that people just can't believe because they haven't experienced it. And things you haven't experienced is hard to understand. So the first step in being able to get there, it comes from the person here, not finding the other person and going, oh, well, let's try this. No, you're ready. You will be ready for that. And then you will be able to understand that person's needs perfectly and satisfy them all because you're tuned in to their vibration, their frequency, and it carries on and carries on. And literally every time becomes something special, yeah? And that comes from things like yoga, Pilates, all those things which put the emphasis on controlling the body, understanding the body. And they say, I think in yoga, it's one of the things they say is that in one's lifetime, learning to understand your body is the biggest thing you could ever hope to achieve. How that works. What happens if I do this? How I nourish it, how I give it hydration, the things that I do on a basis, a continual basis. How does that make my body work? So being fit and healthy and sane and having a really good, stable understanding that sex is about two people and an experience that can be something magical in a very spiritual way that the Hindus and Buddhists all believe in as well. A very deeper meaning to it. And it can be like a spiritual experience if you are committed not only to yourself, but to the other person and to letting go. Was it turn off your mind, relax and float downstream? It's all about being in the right state of mind, following up with the right body and the right ability to be able to just communicate non-verbally with your partner. And if that's not good enough, if I haven't done a good enough job selling you on that, well, okay, down the pub you go. What as they say, you know, it's one of those things you have to find to enjoy and you have to know to know. And if you don't know, well, if it matters to you, now's your chance. And the first thing you have to do is come and get some training. What a cheap way to end this video by just saying, no, look, you can do whatever you really like. But if you want to learn, you have to start somewhere. Take some pride in what your role in sex is, what your contribution in sex is, on a very humble level, very humble. Don't misunderstand this. This is all about being humble. You may have those powers, but that woman must be your goddess. She must be everything to you. And make no mistake, if that's not the one, it won't work. You're going to be my goddess. Oh, God damn it, I can't stand you. The fuck are you doing in my life? And that's the wrong person. Don't waste your time on that. You know, you might find, obviously it's going to contribute to your overall understanding of finding the right person in the end, because you have to kiss a few frogs to find a few princes. But at the end of the day, you will know, because the union with that person, the sexuality with that person will be overwhelming, unlike anything you've ever known. And the chemistry and the joys and the satisfaction. I don't think I've ever had anything more satisfying than being able to know that that's been accomplished. And I was part of that process. And I'm humbled that I was allowed to, I don't want to say adore, but you must kind of give thanks to that you had an opportunity to be part of it. Because you can go all day long talking about how many Ferraris you got, but if you can't keep it up for 3 minutes, mate, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the CEO of a fucking this bank and the other bank. You might be the king of the boardroom, but you're not the king of the bedroom, and you can only be one, because it takes time and it takes practice to put everything into place, and everything comes around. Otherwise, you're settling for that perfunctory thing. Yeah? Adore her. Love her. Love yourself, respect yourself. And this comes as a result of that, when you're able to let go. It is believing. Yes, so anyway, I don't want to get spiritual because it's not me, but anyway, I hope this helps. Look, we've had a little frank discussion here, and basically to summarize, the fitter you are, the more likely you are to know what your body is about. The more you do physical things, the more awareness you accumulate. And that then translates into a filter, a multicolored filter a spectrum of different things, a prism that explodes into many beautiful colors. When you're able to apply that, your stamina, your ability, your awareness, the ability to free yourself in the moment. And that doesn't come easy. Okay, buddy. Well, if you've got any questions, I have, as usual here, I think maybe I would have got one for this topic, but nothing at all. But I'm sure as soon as I put it back on Facebook, there'll be some comments there. But if you do have any questions about how you can learn more about this kind of stuff, there's plenty of stuff out there. You don't really need to ask me questions, but I'm happy to ask about training. I don't really offer those kind of packages. It's not something that I'm hinting at either. I make that clear right now. It's just that I have no problem discussing these things because we are adults, and adults can do that, right? Yeah. Well, this is my testimony forever now. Yes, of course. The non-verbal part is hard for me to express, and you never get a good concept of that until you do it for yourself, right? Yes. Cool. Done. Huh? Okay. If you want to leave a question, leave a question. You don't want to leave a question, don't leave a question. I don't care. God bless you. If you believe in God, I don't, but if you want a blessing, it's fair enough. Okay, boss. See you soon. Remember, if you want something, pat@ilovept.com. Any questions, comments, I'd love to hear from you. If I don't, I'll assume you're extremely happy. Okay, goodbye.